Campbell and I are the leaders of the Phelps 8th grade 4-H club. Our club name is the Campbell Supers. One of the goals of 4-H is to develop community pride. We felt one way to do this is to explore the history of the 1- and 2-room schools in our district. Along with the help of Jim Tucker and some teachers, we would like to attempt to do this. One reason for this interest is because in the fall of 1988, the 7th and 8th grades of the Phelps and the other elementary schools of Casey County are scheduled to be consolidated into the new Casey County Middle School. At that time, the elementary schools as we now know them today will be drastically changed. Today, we have invited these former one-room school teachers to help us in this study. Here to introduce them is our club president, Stephanie Roy.
One of our guests today is Miss Mary Gossage. She lives in the Merritt Ridge community. She started her teaching career at Calvin School and also taught at WC. I remember her year at Phelps. She retired in 1982, but she still teaches substitute in the county system. Miss Gossage is also the leader of Phelps 7th grade 4-H. Our other guest is Mr. Carson. He now lives in Liberty, but he still owns and operates a farm at Field where he was born and raised. He started his teaching career at Texas Chapel. He also taught at Brownsburg, Tate, Galvin, Rock Creek, and Liberty High. He also served as a principal at Douglas and Liberty Elementary. Mr. Cummings retired in 1966. Miss Frances Riggins is from Southport Creek. She started her teaching career at Gainwell, which is now where Douglas School is. She also taught at Hope, Southport, Cadwell, Tate, and 6 weeks at Helmand Rock. For where Miss Gossage, she now teaches at Phelps and has been our 7th grade teacher since the school was built. And I'd like to thank Miss Gossage and Mr. Cundiff and Miss Riggins for coming out. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to you.
I will start. Prior to 1838, the schools in Casey County were very few and far between. The schools that did exist were private and very crude. The buildings were made of hewed logs with a fireplace. They usually had a clapboard for windows without any glass. They just closed it up, I guess, when they got cold. And with a front door. The schools didn't have any floor, just the dirt. They had logs for their desks and seats. And the school was usually only about 3 months long, from July to September, usually July, August, and September, where our vacation is usually. There was no uniform school system during this time, and usually some elderly man in the community would keep school or keep order or whatever. In 1843, Casey County was districted into 21 districts. The number of children between the ages of 6 and 16 was 1,227. The report of 1892 indicated Casey County had 70 school buildings, and this time the county was divided into 70 districts. This has all come from a book that Mrs. Gladys Thomas has written, and it's entitled Casey County Schools from 1806 to 1883. It describes in there an early school at Dunville. It says the building was made of logs, was about 20 by 16, covered with boards. There was only one window, and a good portion of light came in through the cracks in the wall. On the inside of the building, at one end, there was a huge fireplace that was large enough to accommodate a 4-foot log in it. The floor was made of planks. There was a blackboard at the front that a local carpenter had made, and the seats were made from logs. And they taught reading from the Bible and arithmetic and writing and spelling. My first experience in a one-room school in Casey County was in 1943 when my family moved here from Illinois. My father had attended Pine Hill School as a boy, so I also went there as we lived across the road from this. The building had 2 front doors and windows on each side. Across the front of the room was a blackboard, large blackboard. In the middle of the floor stood a big sheet iron stove, which we all huddled around in the wintertime. And at the back, between the two back doors, was a long seat that held a water bucket and a dipper. And everybody brought their own cups, and that was the way we poured water. Of course, the water had to be carried from a spring, and that was a great treat, you know, to be able to be the ones that week to go to the spring. Sometimes it took a long time to get there and back. Too long, the teacher thought sometimes. There were 2 outdoor toilets on the edge of the playground, and there was a large ball field for playing ball and all sorts of running games. And we didn't have PE, we called it recess then. And it usually lasted about an hour because we ate lunch at that time, and then after lunch, well, we had a long play period. We carried our lunch in some sort of a bucket. If you were very fortunate to have a lunch bucket. If you didn't, you carried it in a lard bucket or a cardboard box or whatever you could find. And this lunch usually was whatever was left over from breakfast, like biscuits and sausage or ham, jelly, blackberry jam. If Mother had a cake made, you got a piece of that. If it was in the summertime, you might bring a big ripe tomato, apples, pears, whatever. Just whatever you had at home, because, you know, you couldn't run out to the store and get something then. We drank water because there wasn't any refrigeration in school, wasn't any electricity, so we drank water. The teacher at Pine Hill, when I taught there, was Mr. Claudia Minton, and I think some of you probably know him. He used to teach at this school. Today, the old schoolhouse is on my farm. It's across the road from where I live, and we have hay stored in it. We painted it black. You can still see, we have 2 sheds on each side, but you can still see the outline of the school from the front. Now, my second experience in a one-room school was as a teacher, and I guess at the age of 18, soon to be 19, I started teaching at Hammond, and I had 15 students. The school was similar to one at Pine Hill. They were all built similar to this, with 2 front doors. Set up on a hill. Set up on a hill, yes. And to get there, I didn't have a car, so I rode a horse from my house across the hill through the woods to Zach Luffel's. And I left the horse there and walked on with Zach's children. He had 3 children that went to school. And we had to cross 2 creeks. And sometimes when we had a big rain, we had to go back because we couldn't get across the creek. And this was kind of an exciting experience. When I got to school, it was the wintertime, I had to build a fire, a machine iron stove. Of course, we had to carry in the wood, we had to carry the water. Now, there was a well at Hammond, and we pumped the water out of the well. The building is still there. We went down the creek last fall and just kind of looking around, and Jim and John wanted to go up there. They went up there, but they were afraid to go in because they said it was real snaky. But it's grown up, a lot of trees and so forth. You can see it from the road, but it's on a hillside. And we didn't have a very good ball field because it was so rocky and hillside. I have a picture. I had 15 students that first year, and I have a picture, and there's one girl here that's, her dad's in the picture, so you might be interested to look at it and see if you can pick him out, and other people that you might know. The next experience I had was in a 2-room school at WT. I taught the lower grades and Mr. Carson teaching the upper grades. Ms. Irma Lawson lives in one of the rooms, which is across from where Archer Meeks now lives, and it's just off of Highway 80 on 910. And one of my outstanding memories of being at WT was our basketball team. Mr. Curtis Norfolk taught the upper grades, and I taught the lower grades, and he coached the basketball team. And if you can imagine playing on a dirt court and with just a hoop to Middleburg. I guess Middleburg and Liberty were the only two gyms in the county, and we went to Middleburg for a tournament. And to people's surprise, my little old WT could play ball, and we beat several teams. I talked to Mr. Norfolk this morning, and he said that Gordon White, which was okay, yes, but he had taught in another school, and we beat his team, and he said that he like to have never got over that because WT beat his team, and was supposed to have a pretty good team. But Mr. Norfolk told me he couldn't remember who beat us, but we did get to the semifinals, and I thought that was fun and exciting time. And I have pictures of the ball team and the cheerleaders, but I couldn't find them this morning. You know, they were, I guess, in too good of a safe place. This was one of the main memories that I have of being there. And of course, I enjoyed this job, even though it was time consuming. You had not only to teach school, but you had all the cleaning, all the taking care of everything. And that's all I have. We'll pass the pictures here later.
Thank you.
Next.
We used to say pupils, but I guess I'm supposed to say students. Principal, Mr. Perry, and Ms. Hartline, faculty members, and others. It's a real pleasure for me to come out here, and I drove down trying to find out where the old Pumpkin Chapel School was, but it isn't there anymore. And all of the improvements out here, the wonderful houses that people live in, and how the country has improved, I just can't imagine that there can be that much change. But if some of you are pretty good at math, like you can take 1933 and subtract it from 1987 and see how many years ago that's been. And my memory's not too good anyway, but after that takes time to soon forget. Pumpkin Chapel, I guess some of you know and some of you don't know where the name came from. How many of you know where the name Pumpkin Chapel? All right, I asked when I was out here, how come the name Pumpkin Chapel, which was the one-room school where I started in. And as you know, the churches you call chapels. And I was told that they have meetings at night, and a man would ride his horse up and down by the church and had a pumpkin on his head. That's why the name is Pumpkin Chapel. I've asked, I don't know how many people in this community, and most of them, never heard of that before. Whether that's it or not, I don't know. That's what I was told. When I started out here in 1933, I had 49 college hours. This is my first school at Pumpkin Chapel. And the first day of school, there were 51 students. And some of them went home at lunch that day, and one boy didn't come back. And they asked him why he didn't come back. And he said he just didn't like the looks of that teacher. Mr. Wade Walters had taught here 20 years before that. They built a new school down here. I believe they called it Electro. Anyway, he decided that he would change schools. And so he went down there and allowed me to teach that 1 year in 1933. As I said, we had 51 students, and we enrolled 50. And I tried to get a record of them up at the education office. And I think if Mr. Wendell had been there, he would have allowed me to look at the record, but they would not allow me to look at anything except the census. I don't understand it, but they said they were not allowed to give anything like that out. So I do have those. I noticed the first one is Kenneth Bernard, and the next one is Clifford Klein, some odd in the census. But getting back to the school, and some of you wonder how we taught all the grades in the school. School started at 8 o'clock in the morning and dismissed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The first thing we did in the morning was that we read the Bible. We also had the children to give memory verses from the Bible. I had ordered some material from Moody Press out of Chicago, and they offered a little testament for children who memorized so many verses. As you know, we can't do that anymore. They say we can't, which to me is very unfortunate. We're afraid to use the word religion in any way, form, or fashion because of the atheists who filed suit several years ago. And it seemed to me like that shouldn't affect it, but it does, because people can sue you for anything under the sun anymore. As I said, school started at 8 o'clock in the morning. The first period we had reading, and we had a recitation bench for the children to come up and sit on the recitation bench. It was kind of like your church benches. A big one, I forgot now how many people 7 or 8 people could be on that recitation bench. And the first grade, while we put words on the board, we used a pointer to point to them and ask how many, of the words they could recognize. And then, in addition to that, we had other pupils help those in the lower grades. One thing that we tried later on, this is the reading period, was from about 8 o'clock until 10. When we had not PE, but recess. Some of you have not heard of recess. I want to say this, you don't appreciate it like some of the rest of us do. That was about one of the most important words in English language in those days, to get out of recess. Play ball, play town ball, and baseball, and skip the rope, and many other games.
Fiddlesticks and bear-baits.
Well, I can't remember like you can. Anyway, another thing that we did after the children in the first grades had learned a lot of these words, and they used a pointer to point to the board the words, and we'd go over those day after day. And then I would tell them that in about 2 months we were going fishing. And, well, that kind of excited them, that we were fixing to go fishing. And they began wondering about it, and some of them went home and told the parents that Mr. Cundiff was going to take them fishing. And some of the parents came back to me and saying that they didn't want their child to go with me fishing. It was too dangerous and so forth. But fishing to us was that we reviewed these words over and over. And about 2 or 3 months, we had all the words up on the board, and we had a pointer for each child to go and point out the words that they knew. And we'd give them credit for it and put their name down, and we'd say, now you caught a big fish here. And if they could name 10 of them, well, they'd caught 10 fish. And we had a lot of fun out of that. The recess, of course, was at 10 o'clock. About 30 minutes, unless the teacher was in a good ball game, and sometimes he extended it a few minutes so we could play a little bit longer. And arithmetic, in those days, you may say math, but we said arithmetic was up about 12 o'clock. Then we had another recess from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. At 1 o'clock to about 2 o'clock, we had English or language and so forth. And from there on, well, we had another recess about 2 to 2:30. And then after that, we had geography, and history. A lot of this I can't remember. I think we had health in there for maybe some of the upper grades and so forth. But much of the instructions came from older children helping the younger children. You'd be surprised at how much they learn, the lower ones, from the students in the upper grades. Another trick that I had in teaching these young ones words was that I brought the daily paper to school every day. After a while, I had stacks of them pretty high, and I'd have the students just to keep them busy. You had to keep something going on. Keep them busy to take a pencil and circle around the words that they could find in that newspaper that they knew, like the and an, dog and boy and girl and things like that. So that kept them busy to some extent. Another thing I had to help keep them busy was what they called a hectograph. Now, you've had memographs and you've had, what is it, you make your pictures on now, duplicators and so forth. I had a hectograph which I ordered from someone, and it was a frame about this size, the size of one sheet of paper. And then I had another one over here, and they folded up just for convenience. And we used a jelly-like material in the hectograph, but we used an ink to put in there. And you could copy a page, and you put that page on there, and you could turn out about 100 copies of it before it went bad. And I kept those ahead of time for arithmetic combinations, multiplication and subtraction and all those things. And maybe in a week or two we'd go over the same thing again. The busy work, maybe we call it today. So that was a great help to keep the students busy. And as I said, when I started, we had 50 students, I think it was. And I had 49 college hours the first time I taught out here, and you were supposed to have 16 for a certificate at that time. Pretty soon it was raised to 49 and 60 and so forth. And I graduated from college in 1938. If I live the next year, I'm going to my 50th year graduation from college down at Western Kentucky University. So also, you want to know how I got rich. We had 6 months school the first year. Now later on we had 7. 6 months school, and I was paid $36 a month. The state was broke. You maybe are not interested in that part of it, but we were. And they sent draft of some kind into the county, and you could take your report at the end of the month to the superintendent, and he could give you a slip of paper. And you could take that slip of paper to the bank, and you could draw $30. And they held the $6 back until the next spring. We had 6 months coming about the 1st of May, $36. Figure that out by the hour and see how much we were making back in those days. We all complained about not making enough money, but $36 a month is something else. I rode horseback back here, back to Bumpkin Chapel, and Mr. Herbert Patterson lived pretty close to the school, and I put my horse in his barn, and my dad and I would haul hay out there, and he would feed the horse hay, take the horse and water every day. And of course, a lot of things that I've done in between, besides, as I told you before, this was my first school, Pumpkin Chapel, Memphis, to Dry Fork, 2 years, then to Tate School, then to Gilpin School, and then to Rye Creek School. Now, a lot of we've lost all of our post offices. See, I was born and raised in Phil, but there's no post office there anymore. So some of you don't know where Phil is, but it's the intersection of 9, 10, and 501. In fact, at home where I was born is to the right over there. And Gilman is about 5 miles going toward Middleburg and Yosemite. And let's see. Of course, you know, probably know where Tate is up on South Fork. You know where Tate is. You can tell us. So then after that, in 1940, I guess, I stopped teaching and went into a Western Auto store at Liberty, which I ran that store for 20 years to 1960. 1960, I started teaching in high school again. I taught 3 years there in Liberty, and then when the new high school was built out there, 1 year out there. And then from there, I went to Douglas School, which is out on Road 49 going toward Lebanon. I was out there 6 years. Then I came back to Liberty in elementary number 2, which is the school next to the vocational school. And I was there 7 years, retiring in 1966. It's hard for me to remember all these dates. I also lived in Louisville 1 year and went to night school at YMCA night school, made 1.5 high school units. I graduated from Casey County High, which is there at Liberty at that time, and I changed it there to Ford part of the time. And I have, that's the main part, I think, of it. I have 2 sons, 6 grandchildren. I live in Liberty. I lived there since 1939. I was born and raised over here at, as I told you, over in Phil. The house is still there. And my son and his family live over there. Have been living there for about 6 years. Yes. You won't ask a question. Miss Campbell back there has been there to visit my daughter-in-law and knows her real well. And I don't know whether there's anything else. Do you have any questions about asking? I worked for REA one time. I wanted to get electricity to Phil and to other places. And I worked from down in Adair County, Dunville, Phil, Gilpin, Katy. All of you know where Katy is. Most of you, I think, live without me. Tell them where it is. And I worked for them for 1 year in the surveying group, getting right-of-ways, getting membership. And you can see what REA has done for the country. Are there any questions you'd like to ask? I'm sure I skipped over this pretty fast. Seeing what you have on the board up there, the planets, the way when I went to school that we remembered those was M, them, J, sun. Okay, beginning there with Mercury, M, V, E, Earth, and so forth, all the way. Pluto is one that we didn't have, and sun was one we didn't have to remember. Of course, all of you have it memorized anyway, and need not tell you how to do it. Another thing I meant to tell you was that, or maybe I've already told you, I repeat myself sometimes. This boy asked his teacher, which is correct, isn't or ain't? And the boy said, why, ain't is correct. Said the isn't people are just in control. Teachers like to say. Another thing, I'll tell you this. When I first got married, my wife was graduated from Seminary College, came from Danville. And one of the things she started correcting my English on when we were first married, that I would always be coming up with, where are you going at? And she stopped me from saying, where are you going at? And many of us have learned our language family, from the people we associate with. I use poor English because I always associated with older people. I was an only child, and we called it loafing at the stores there at Phil, and therefore I was speaking the language that those people spoke. And I had difficulty when I went to college correcting me for my inability to speak English. In fact, the difference is I had to take an extra course in English, and I'm sure that I learned a lot about speaking. Do you know what happened? I came back to Phil, I loafed on the platform, I associated with the same people. First thing you knew, I was using the same incorrect language. If you had never heard anything except correct English, you would have no problem whatsoever. But I'm sorry to say this, since I was a teacher for 23 years, or principal and so forth, that a lot of our teachers don't speak exactly correct English. We speak the English that we were taught. That's all I can think of right now. Do you have any questions about how we got through the day? Having all 8 grades. I'm not sure about this, but I think and sometimes we combine 5th and 6th grade. And some here may not have here, but sometimes we do. How we got through the day. If you could divide the period and see how many minutes we had for each period. And 10 and 15 minutes and so forth. All right.
How did you live on 15 cents an hour? How did you make 15 cents an hour?
Well, that was easier than it is today because I lived with my parents. I lived with my parents. My father bought the horse that I rode over here, and he fed it. And I didn't have very much money to go to school. I continued to go to school each. After that 6 months, then I went to college for 4.5 months. And the first year I fared pretty well because my father had given me a calf. That calf became a cow and began to raise calves, and I'd sell those. And I had almost enough money to go 4.5 months to college. The next year I sold some more, and my mother had to help. She sold chickens and eggs, and she'd write me a letter, and one of those old great old big $1 bills would be in that letter, and I'd be looking for it all the time. And I struggled to get through college. Several times I almost quit because I didn't have money to go. But usually, if there's a will, there's a way. If you're determined. You know this fitness program that they have, don't quit. Just keep on. And you will find the money. Any other questions? All right. Just 1 year. Mr. Wade Waters has taught here 20 years. He decided to go down to the electoral school and teach 1 year. And then from here I went to Dry Fork teaching. I just taught 1 year. I taught 2 years at Dry Fork. Okay?
Now, I was supposed to be here today, and I don't have any notes. I would wish I had, because I just came in here to listen to these two. And if Mr. Cundiff, I call him Mr. Carson, what they used to call him by their first name, instead of their last name or pictures. And I call him Mr. Carson instead of him. And if he had, at the Hays County Board of Education had let him have that list, my name would have been on it. He didn't tell that, but I think I was in the 4th grade the first year he taught. And I do know that we started the lessons with, the day with Bible reading, and I do know that he didn't only ask us to say chapters, he demanded it. I can still say the 13th chapter.
1 Corinthians.
1 Corinthians, I can say the 23rd Psalms, I can say the 17th of Psalms, And I just can't hardly begin to think of, and I can say it too, I can say, he required us. And I also got one of those testaments, and those little St. Mark, St. Luke, all those. Now, we did that, he required us to do it, and I'm glad he did. And we'd say, each morning, we'd say Bible verses. Some of the boys would come and say Jesus Christ, the shortest one in the Bible, you know that shortest verse, don't you?
Pardon me for cutting in, but we had Bible verses in our church, and each one of us rushed ahead to see who could say Jesus went first.
Did you? Well, and I noticed Mary told about, and Mrs. Gossage told about the water in the cups. And we had water bells, we call it. We had, it's a big, we call it dinner bells now. You see them out for the deep and full of roses. Well, we had one up in the loft of the school. And there'd be one, ring it once, and in 10 minutes they'd ring it again. And in between that time was to get you a drink. And at noontime, it was to wash your hands. And we used to dip her in the bucket and the dipper. And we had one chose to pour the water, and you go along here and wash your hands, and you slung them dry. You didn't have paper towels like you do now to throw in the floor down there. I go in there now and see them just wasted. And that just grieves me. Because I can think of all the times that I would like to have had that to dry your hands on. We didn't have that. And, but a few other things I jotted down here. Now, on Friday afternoons, that was something to look forward to. They left that out. We had ball games all afternoon. And it'd be like if you spunk in chapel, Thomas Ridge would come. And then one time we'd walk go to Thomas Ridge. And we had yells. Some of them wasn't too nice either. I mean, we made them up. And, you just really get involved in that. We had good times, though. And then since this is the 4-H club, when I taught tape, and I taught there longer than any school I've been in, we had a 4-H club by Miss Sunshine Holly, was the home administration agent. And she'd come out once a month. And she's pretty active. But one I can remember us doing was that the women of the community came in and they took us a salad picnic. And they taught all the children the different salads. If you don't know what salad is, that's greens, wild greens. We learned dandelion. I think we did the pole. It's coming in nice. And blue root, speckled egg, and y'all ain't the rest of them, the Reese's. And they taught those children the correct ones to eat and told them the ones that they shouldn't eat. Now that's one 4-H project we did one spring. And another one was Thanksgiving. The 4-H club, or really the community, but it was for the 4-H club, did a Thanksgiving dinner. And we had chicken and dumplings, and they brought in pies, and we warmed the stuff up on the stove. And the community came in and we put those big old seats together. And we had double seats. It's 2 seated. So you didn't have a single seat, you had double seats. And you could put those together. And we made pretty good tables. And had a wonderful time. We invited the superintendent, Mr. Charlie Westinghouse. He was the superintendent. And then the mothers and the grandmothers. They gave talks and told things that, that was interesting. Now, that was 2 4-H club projects that I can remember. And then the girls, about the only thing I could help them with would be sewing and embroidery. We did that. I went to 4-H camp one time for the county. And they didn't have swimming pools, and we went to the rivers. And they did different crafts. But 4-H is quite different than it was then. And it just they just made me think of a few things that, and I did go to Hammond Rock for Mary once, in which they recorded. I took mine in a Jeep, and in an Army Jeep. I didn't have very many, and I drove with that Army Jeep. Some of them would sit all over you. And we went up the Hammond Rock, and it's called Turkey Creek, if you don't know where that's at. And finished it out, I think it was about 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Because at that time, the school wasn't going to get out in time for the semester of college, and she needed to go back. And I took mine up there, took them both. And I've had one of those today. The picture. Is his picture in there? Well, he was up there at that time. And, a fellow could last the whole day talking about it. So I just wanted to come in here and listen to what they had to say to make me think of a few things they left out.
Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask? Response?
Who built the fires and took out the ashes?
We did.
The teachers did, unless you had a bigger boy that would do something. And another thing is, the children didn't quit when they was 16 years old. Did they?
No,
Some of us
some
adults
continued to 8th grade.
They had,
just go over and over and over,
they didn't have the opportunity to go to high school.
and they just come on to school. And another thing is, I've noticed, and that's what happened a lot of times, when you got to the 4th grade, they alternated. They teach the 5th and the 7th one year, and the next year they teach the 6th and the 8th. And if you was in the 4th grade, and he come on for you to go to your next one, and it come to 6th, you went to 6th grade, and then the next year you came back to 5th. He did that.
If a teacher was sick, did you have a substitute?
You didn't get sick.
Well, you didn't get sick, you just kept coming. You just kept coming. I don't believe they had a system like that, and teachers were scared back in those days. It would have been hard for them to find a substitute. And I know of cases where people taught school who had no certificate whatsoever. I know down at Wright Creek, when I was kind of small, a cousin of mine taught down there, and his mother got sick, and he was out for 2 or 3 weeks. And his wife was down there and taught for him, but nothing said that.
Well, now, you was talking about how many hours you had. I was going to Berea High School, and Mr. W. Watkins told my dad that if I would come home and go to Lindsey Wilson for 1 semester, he'd give me school. And that's what I did. I just out of high school. And I went down to Lindsey Wilson, taught one semester's work, and I started teaching the next year. But he wouldn't give me pumpkin jack, because he referred to the time Jesus went to his hometown, and they didn't even acknowledge him, and it was harder on you if you went home. So he gave me way out there with Daniel.
Never would let me teach the field. I guess they knew to do that. Okay.
Mr. Cundiff, how many years did you teach at Rice Creek?
How many years did I teach?
At Rice Creek.
1, 1938, 39. And a great event happened while I taught at Rice Creek. I got married. Yes.
Was there such a thing as a Kentucky State Register book that you kept? And another one, do you remember when buses were used, or were they always used to transport kids? Or do you remember the time when busing began?
Well, I don't know the date, but there were private buses which people paid the bus driver to transport them to Liberty,
To high school.
to high school, so trucks. And I don't know the date that they started.
Did the kids just have to get there on their own then?
Yes.
That's why I went to Riggins. I didn't have any way to get to Liberty.
I boarded at Liberty going to high school a year and a half. I boarded, and later on, my father had a car and I drove. He had one of those old Model Ts, 1916 models. There was one that's in there and back. What she said.
Now, I had register, I don't know when they started that.
Yes, I
Yes,
had one.
we had a register book.
And it was more difficult to fill out than it is now.
Oh,
You had to
yeah.
keep percentage and everything.
Percentage and so forth.
Oh, no,
And,
it was much different.
One reason So, that record book is on record, over at the, County Board of Education right now. And if Mr. Wendell Emerson had been over there, he would have allowed me to have that, because I looked at it before, for some reason. The superintendent was there, and the secretary had to ask Mr. Wolford. And he found it, finally allowed him to use copy of his census, but he would not allow me to get the record book. That's what I wanted, the record book, so I know exactly who went to school. I might say this, that I've got here, I've got Wayne Waters, R.O. Waters, Letty Waters, Francis Waters, Ray Waters.
Oh, that's all right.
Now that's, actually, that's the census, I think, for the year after. I think that'd be 34. Any other questions? Yes.
How did you teach all those grades like that? Was it hard?
Well, I was trying to explain some of it, but it's pretty hard to explain because, as I've said, some of the older children, for instance, we had the reading class from, I'd say, about 8 to 10 o'clock. And sometimes some of the better students would have to listen to some of the others read. It'd be impossible to have recitation for all of them. But as I said, we had a recitation bench up there, and everybody came up front to that grade. And some of the older ones helped some of the younger ones all the time.
A lot of the lessons was done orally.
Yes, most of them.
Most of the math. You went to the board and you worked it out, and they see whether you knew it or not.
As I said, there's addition combinations and subtraction combinations, multiplication and problems and all like that I ran over on this hectograph.
I had one of those at home, and back, when you find it, I'll bring it to you. The jelly part will be dried out.
Jelly.
The jelly's in there.
You could change that. It would make about 100 copies fairly plain, and then get dimmer and dimmer. And then you take that jelly out and boil it. Take it home and boil it, and it help get some of the ink out of it, and you can use it over time and time again.
You don't know.
What if you were like Miss Fox or Miss Campbell and had a child? What would you do with it? Would you take it to the neighbors?
Well, I don't know.
They took away.
Well,
They were where you took them. You took them.
When they went-
everywhere
when
you
we went to
taught, if you was teaching.
If they were old enough to be school.
You took them everywhere.
I didn't have that problem because I was an only child. Okay, any other questions? Feel free to ask. Maybe we can answer them what we do this. It was a real problem to get through today.
It's not.
Yes.
Did you explain a little bit the punishment that you had? Did you have punishment? What kind of things did you really get on the kids for doing, or, how did you handle that?
Didn't have
Discipline.
discipline, set rules. I'll tell you this, and this doesn't apply altogether to Function Chapel, but when I went to school, there were some older boys that would tell me stories of getting me to laugh. I was very easy to laugh. And the teacher was in the habit, she just pointed to the corner. You get in the corner, stand up. And some people have used a ring and keep your nose in it, so I never went to anything like that. But if it was serious enough, well, I used a switch. I mean, off of a limb of a tree, a switch. However, the year I was out here, I had not spanked anyone or whipped anyone, and I think it was about the last day of school that this little boy had told me one false story right after another. He could always manage to lie out of everything he ever did, and I tended to believe him. He would get by with it. And I think it was the last 2 or 3 days of school that he told me this big lie, and I used a switch on it. And I went home and told my mother about it. And she got after me pretty heavy about it, that if I'd gone that long in the school and hadn't whipped him, I should have let him by without getting whipped. But now that was my method, was that. Now later on, like in high school, we had paddle. I've got a place in my arm there where I was clanking the oil in my hand, and it broke some of the bundles
Must have really been good.
in my arm there, and I went to the doctor to see about doing something with it. He said it would never heal completely, and if I had those bundles retied, it would give me trouble the rest of my days. Better just let it go. So I got it right there to show that I spanked this boy. I was spanking him, and seemed like my arm kind of turned like that, and I really suffered for 2 or 3 years. But staying in at recess was another thing, a punishment that was used.
The worst one you get.
And
Well, I got one I could tell on that.
we didn't do too much keeping them after
Joe
school
James.
because the teacher was anxious to get away just like the pupils, so we kind of let that one go to the next day.
I'm not staying at recess. And we have these big double seats out there. And I go home for dinner all the way home. And we had, I found lush nuts, they call them pentalotes. And I brought me back some from the fruit side. So, for one girl that I sat with, we decided we eat that for recess. We sliced it up and took the seeds out, put the paper to the trash can. And we'd bend over these big long seeds like we was getting out mixed, and we'd eat that up. This girl behind me says, "What are you doing?" You know, she's mad. I said, "I'm telling you." And we told her that we'd give her part of it if she would tell it. But she ate more of it than we did. But just as soon as recess came, here she goes to tell us. And she gets to go out because she told on us. She goes on out. We carried them and pulled me in one at a time and said, "Did you do this now?" I had to say I did. And I said, he said, "Okay, you got the shots. Which do you want, sit in for recess for a week or take it with you?" And I said, "Oh, I'll sit with you." He said, "You can sit in with me." Well, he got her in. He said, "Which you want?" She'd already beginning to cry. He said, "Which you want to do, sit in a week or take it with you?" I said, "I'll sit in a week." He said, "You take it with you." He gives us shots. And for the first day or two, I sat under the chalkboard, the chalk box, in the floor. And then the next time I stood up. And then the last day or so, I got to sit in my seat the whole week. Oh, I went home every day for dinner, that hour. I could go home and get out that night, stay for the morning and eat. Now,
I have this
your recess was really important.
Yes.
picture, now none of you would remember. And even, I guess you'd have to go to your grandparents to remember, but they had a mill at Dunville, had a dam across the creek down at Dunville. And they had a grist mill there, and my dad used to send me down there to the mill because we had a mill closer to home than that, but they thought that the mill ground on that water mill was better than that operated by a gasoline engine or something. Now that's not important to you, but get up here on the desk if you want to pay time and see it. I didn't bring in that picture. That's all I have. Okay.
Ms. Riggins, how did the students differ from today and from whenever you started teaching?
How did it differ?
Honestly.
Well, they didn't act as mature in a way. I mean, not as grown up as now the little girls stayed little girls longer. To me, they was, we call it feisty. And it seemed like the boys, seemed like they didn't mature as early or something as they do now. Now, you see little girls out going places when they're 4th and 5th grades. Now, we didn't do that. We weren't allowed to. And the places that you went was either to church or to maybe a school fair or things like that. And you know you're going to act different.
Many of you had many more experiences than we had back in those days. All you learned from TV, and you made trips places, and I never even went to the county seat at Liberty except 2 or 3 times a year. My father would take me when they had court up there. Of course, I'm older than these other ladies up there, but I didn't even get to Liberty. I didn't know what it was. And all of you taking trips, and been to Somerset, Russell Springs, Lexington, all these different places. And you've learned so much more. And things in your home have changed. As I said, I'm just amazed at the fine homes that I saw driving around. I drove down the old road down there and sat around this morning just to see all the wonderful homes and the beautiful country. This is an awful pretty part of Kentucky out here. And the students I had out here, compared to other students that I had, were just simply one. This was a fine community. The people were like they were where I grew up. They were poor, but they good, honest, hard-working people, and they were just one, just better than most of them.
I shouldn't say this, I don't mean all of it, but they had more manners. They said, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, and pardon me. And a lot of that was taught at the home that I don't see today. I see children down this hall that if you don't get out of the way, they'll run over you. Now, that's the worst thing that I see with the children different, that you are not having as good of manners as you should. Now, I'm not saying any particular ones, but there are some that needs to improve. That I know you're eager to get out, and I know you're in a hurry, but still, just remember your manners just a little more. Since you asked me, Jerry, that's one difference that I see. Of course, they weren't all perfect either.
Yes, most of them won't go either.
Is it? Yes, it is.
I certainly do appreciate this, and that you were willing to put up with me, because since this is my first school out here, it means an awful lot to me to come back to the place where I started. And I was only in school for 23 years. As I said, I was in Western Auburn for 20 years. I've done other jobs too. But I do appreciate this opportunity. And since I'm not a public speaker, I can't remember very well and so forth. I have difficulty in speaking. Never made a public speech in my life. In 8th grade graduations, I'd say I learned more there. Let's see, 13 years that I was principal. I had a little talk everything. So I appreciate you putting up with us. Thank you. You can cut it off.
I asked her if she remembered the first paycheck she got.
Class of 1952.
Roxy,
Former elected student. Well,
Did you
thank,
say that Ray Walters went to pumpkin chop too?
yes. We ran out of tractor fuel and I've got to go down there and see about it.
Pine Hill,
Thank you
1946.
a lot, I appreciate it.
Thank you. See, that one's mine.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. Well, glad to see all you people that I already knew and to see you again. Appreciate it.
You know, I was thinking, oh, I was just that core, I thought you
Core,
might trip on
I
through
believe
it.
no.
Will you come back and see us anytime now? Just
Okay.
anytime.
I thought, just to get a little background on it, it used to be.
You know, my family went to one time school until I started first grade kindergarten and I was in seventh. And I went with them, it was just like, mom was saying, I was at her.
Because you keep milk in there.
It was always an old biscuit though.
When you said they had a biscuit, they always had no
It was
biscuit to eat.
biscuit because you just didn't,
Yeah.
you might go to town